Today, based on some feedback I've received in the past, I'd like to talk about intellectual property and specifically who owns intellectual property. I think it confuses a lot of people about who actually owns something at the end of the day. Now, in our world, we're talking primarily about copyright and trademark. And to make it a little bit more simple, copyright is arts. Trademark or brands or things that people use to identify their company from others. So for copyright, we're talking about original works of authorship, books, music, art, videos, maybe a press release. Those are all examples of copyright. Trademark is an actual brand that's being used by a company in the marketplace. So that would be the McDonald's M logo, the Starbucks logo, the name Starbucks itself. All these things are meant to identify a company specifically from all of its competitors. Now, when you're looking at ownership, it's really important to start at the beginning. Who is the original owner of this item that you've created? Because that will determine who could later be an owner or not be an owner. With copyright, the person who creates that individual thing, that video, maybe the SowGrow marketing icon that's up in the upper left-hand corner, whoever created that was the original owner. That's the baseline rule. We'll talk about an exception in 1 second. In copyright, it's the company that's actually using the brand, who's actually going out their marketplace and putting it on their website, putting it on the side of their building, putting it on their trucks or wherever these logos might be, or these company names, etc. So creation does not matter in trademark. And for that purpose, we can kind of eliminate that in this room because we're creative people here. And when we're talking about the intellectual property that we are creating for our clients, we are creating copyrights by and large. We're not using their logos for them. We're creating their logos for them to use. So even when we're dealing with logos, we're dealing with the copyright elements of the logo. So the original owner of the copyright is the person that creates it. The original owner of a trademark is the person who's using it in commerce. Now, a lot of people ask me about this work made for hire rule. Isn't it true that if I do something for someone that they immediately own it? So your client hires you to, we'll use Stephanie for a second, to have some sort of a promotional piece to put out to different publications out there, mention an award they received or something like that. That is a piece of copyright, but Stephanie wrote that for her client. So doesn't the client own it? The answer is no, by and large, unless it falls under the work made for hire rule. It's an arcane rule. It's a weird rule. And let me tell you, almost never applies. And I'll tell you why right now. Work made for hire, first of all, if your employee creates something, you own it. So if Kristen, for example, hires Jess on her team to create these various things for her clients, Kristen, and Ideate more specifically, owns it because Jess is an employee of Ideate. So since Jess is doing the thing as an employee that she's been asked to do, Ideate owns it, not Jess, the individual. So that's one of the work made for hire that does function quite a bit, but doesn't really apply to the situations we're talking about where we're contracted by someone. So for independent contractors, there's two weird hoops you have to leap through to be able to fall under the work made for hire. First of all, you have to have a written agreement between the two parties before this work begins, and the words work made for hire or work for hire must be in them. Second, and here's the real gotcha, it has to be in one of 9 categories. And these categories are weird. Let me tell you, weird. I'm going to read them to show you how weird they are. A contribution to collective work, that might exist sometimes. A part of a motion picture or audiovisual work. A translation, a supplemental work like a foreword or afterword to a book. A compilation, instructional text, tests, answer materials for tests, or atlases. Weird categories. So our branding materials, our things that we're making do not fall in these categories. And by and large, we can just ignore the work made for hire rule. So now we're in a situation where this item that we create for our client, it's owned by us. So we're stuck, right? Of course we're not stuck. Oh, by the way, here is a flow chart. You want to see it later of how the work made for hire rule looks. And if you think more flow chart, so employees, the employer almost always owns it. As an independent contractor, you have 2 yeses you have to get to before you get to the point where the employer owns it. Or excuse me, the person who commissioned it owns it. So you can transfer your ownership. You can, by assignment, assign your rights over to someone else. And I see a lot of the best contracts I see in the creative space is it says something along the lines of, this item I'm creating for you is a work made for hire. And to the extent it's not a work made for hire, I hereby assign it to you. So one way or the other, through the belt or through the suspenders, at the end of the day, the project is getting complete and the person who paid for it is owning it. You can also record these assignments with the government. Finally, if you don't like to transfer entire ownership, you can always license it. You know, if you're going to give someone a limited right to use something, you can do that. We prefer it as lawyers to be a written license, but you can even have an express license, hey, or an implied license. I'll let you do this for this weekend or whatever. So there's a few tips and gotchas. The big takeaway is almost everything you create for your clients be owned by you unless you do something in writing that changes that.